Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, and thank you so very much for being with me and joining me. So, we are on chapter number 13, and 13 is the household. We are on the book Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, his life based on the earliest sources by Martin Lings. So, the bridegroom left his uncle house and went to live in the house of his bride, as well as being a wife. Khadijah Salamullah alaiha was also a friend to her husband, the sharer of his inclinations and ideals to a remarkable degree. Their marriage was wondrously blessed, fraught with great happiness, though not without sorrows of bereavement. She bore him six children, two sons and four daughters. Their eldest child was a son named Qasim, and Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came to be known as Abul Qasim, the father of Qasim. But the boy died before his second birthday. The next child was a daughter, whom they named Zainab, and she was followed by three other daughters, Ruqayya, Kulthum, and Fatima, and finally by another short-lived son. On the day of his marriage, Muhammad set free Baraka, the faithful slave he had inherited from his father. And on the same day, Khadijah made him a gift, one of her own slaves, a youth of 15 named Zayd. As to Baraka, they married her to a man of Yasrib, to whom she bore a son, after whom she came to be known as Ayman, the mother of Ayman. As to Zaid, he and some other youths had recently been bought at the great fair of Uks by Khadijah's nephew Hakim, the son of her brother Hazam, and the next time his aunt visited him, Hakim had sent for his newly acquired slaves and invited her to choose one of them for herself. It was Zaid that she had chosen. Zaid was proud of his ancestry. His father, Haritha, was of the great northern tribe of Kalb, whose territory lay on the plains between Syria and Iraq. His mother was a woman of the no less illustration neighboring tribe of Tay, one of whose chieftains at that time was the poet Knight Hatim, famous throughout Arabia for his cavalry and his fabulous generosity. Several years had now passed since Zaid had been taken by his mother to visit her family, and the village where they were staying had been raided by some horsemen of the Bani Kain, who had carried the boy off and sold him into slavery. Haritha, his father, and had searched for him in vain, not had Zaid seen any traveler from Kalb who could take a message from him to his parents. But the Kaaba drew pilgrims from all parts of Arabia, and one day, during the holy season, several months after he had become Muhammad's slave, he saw some men and women who of his own tribe and clan in the streets of Makkah. If he had seen them the previous year, his feelings would have been very different. He had yearned for such an encounter, yet now that it had at last come, it placed him in a quandary. He could not deliberately leave his family in ignorance of his whereabouts, but what message could be sent them? Whatever its guest, he knew, as a son of the desert, that nothing less than a poem would be adequate for such an occasion. He composed some verses which expressed something of his mind, but implied more than they expressed. Then he accounted. Then he accosted the Calvite pilgrims, and having told them who he was, he said, "Speak unto my family these lines, for well I know that they have sorrowed for me." I'll read these lines for you, my viewers. So these lines are, here they go. Though I myself be far, yet take my word unto my people at the holy house. I dwell amidst the places God hath hallowed. Set then aside the sorrows ye have grieved. Weary not camels scouring the earth for me, for I praise to be God. For I, praise be to God, am in the best of noble families, great in all its line. When the pilgrims returned home with their tidings, Haritha at once set off for Makkah with his brother, Ka'b, and going to Muhammad, they begged him to allow them to ransom Zayd for as high a price as he might ask. Let him choose, said Muhammad. And if he choose you, he is yours without ransom. And if he choose me, I am not the man to set any other above him who chose me. Then he called Zayd and asked him if he knew the two men. This is my father, said the youth, and this is mine uncle. Me thou knowest, said Muhammad, and thou hasn't seen my companionship unto thee, so choose the between me and them. But Zayd choice was already made, and he said at once, I would not choose any man in preference to thee. Thou art unto me as my father and my mother. Out upon thee, O Zayd, explained the man of God. Wilt thou choose slavery above freedom, and above the father and the uncle and the family? It is even so, said Zayd. For I have seen from this man such things that I could never choose another above him. All further talk was cut short by Muhammad, who now bade them come with him to the Kaaba, and standing in the Hijr, he said in a loud voice, all ye who are present, bear witness that Zayd is my son. I am his heir, and he is mine. The father and the uncle had thus to return with their purpose unachieved. But the tale they had to tell their tribe of the deep mutual love which had brought about this adoption was not an inglorious one. And when they saw that Zayd was free and established in honor with what promised to be a high standing amongst the people of the sanctuary, such as might benefit his brothers and other kinsmen in years to come, they were reconciled and went their way without bitterness. From that day, the new Hashmite was known in Makkah as Zayd ibn Muhammad. Among the most frequent visitors to the house was Safiya, now Khadijah's sister in law, the youngest of the Muhammad's aunt, younger even than himself. And with her she would bring her little son Zubair, whom she had named after his elder brother. Zubair was thus well acquainted with his cousins, the daughter of Muhammad, from his earliest years. With Safiya came also her faithful retainer Salma, who had delivered Khadijah of all her children and who considered herself to be one of the household. As the years passed, there were occasional visits from Halima, Muhammad's foster mother, and Khadijah was also generous to her. One of these visits was at a time of severe and widespread drought, through which Halima's flocks had been seriously depleted, and Khadijah's made her a gift of 40 sheep and a Hoda camel. This same drought which produced something like a famine in the Hijaz, was the cause of a very important addition to the household. Abu Talib had more children than he could easily support, and the famine weighed heavily upon him. Muhammad noticed this and felt that something should be done. The wealthiest of his uncles was Abu Lahab, but he was somewhat remote from the rest of the family, partially, no doubt, because he had never had any full brothers or sisters amongst them. Being the only child of his mother, Muhammad preferred to ask for the help of Abbas, who could well afford it, being a successful merchant, and who was close to him because they had been brought up together. Equally close or even closer was Abbas's wife, Umul Fadl, who loved him dearly, and who always made him welcome at their house. So he went to them now and suggested that each of their two households should take charge of one of Abu Talib's sons until the circumstances improved. They readily agreed, and the two men went to Abu Talib, who said when he heard their proposal, "Do what you will, but leave me, Akil and Talib." Jafar was now about 15, and he was no longer the youngest of the family. His mother Fatima had born yet another son to Abu Talib, some 10 years younger, and they had named him Ali. Abbas said he would take charge of Jafar, whereupon Muhammad agreed to do the same for Ali. It was about this time that Khadijah had born her last child, a son named Abdullah, but the baby had died at an even earlier age than Qasim. In a sense, he was replaced by Ali, who was brought up as a brother to his four girls' cousins, being about the same age as Ruqayya and Umm Kulthum, somewhat younger than Zainab and somewhat older than Fatima. These five, together with Zayd, formed the immediate family of Muhammad and Khadijah, but there were many other relatives for whom he felt a deep attachment and who have a part to play, large or small, in the history which here is chronicled. Muhammad's eldest uncle, Harith, who was now dead, had left many children, and one of the sons, his cousin Abu Sufyan, was also his foster brother. Having been nursed by Halima amongst the Bani Saad a few years after himself, people would say that Abu Sufyan was of those who bore the closest family likeness to Muhammad, and amongst the characteristics they had in common was eloquence. But Abu Sufyan was a gifted poet, perhaps more gifted than his uncle Zubair and Abu Talib, whereas Muhammad had never shown any inclination to compose a poem, though he was surpassed in his mastery of Arabic. So he was unsurpassed in his mastery of Arabic and in the beauty of his speech. In Abu Sufyan, who was more or less his own age, he had something of a friend and a companion, a little closer by blood kinship, were the numerous children of his father's full sisters, and that is of Abdul Muttalib's five eldest daughters. Amongst the elder of these cousins were the children of his aunt, Umema, who had married a man named Jesh of the North Arabian tribe of Asad. He had a house in Makkah, and it was possible for a man who lived amongst a tribe other than his own to become, by mutual alliance, the confederate of a member of that tribe, into which he thus became partially integrated, sharing up to a point its responsibilities and its privileges. Herb, now chief of the Umayyad branch of the clan of Abu Abdu Shams, had made Jesha his confederate, so that by marrying him, Umema could almost be said to have married a Shamsite. Their eldest son, named after his brother Abdullah, was some 12 years younger than Muhammad, and the two cousins had a great affection for each other. Umema's daughter Zainab, several years younger than her brother, a girl of outstanding beauty, was included in this bond. Muhammad had known and loved them both from their earliest childhood, and the same was true of others, in particular of Abu Salama, the son of his aunt Bara. The powerful attraction which centered on Al Amin, as he was so often called, went far beyond his own family, and Khadijah was with him at that center, loved and honored by all who came within the wide circle of their radiance. A circle which also included many of her own relations. Particularly close to her was her sister Hala, whose son Abul As was a frequent visitor to the house. Khadija loved this nephew as if he had been her own son, and in due course, for she was continually sought after for help and advice, Hala asked her to find a wife for him. When Khadija consulted her husband, he suggested their daughter Zainab, who could soon be of marriageable age, and when the time came, they were married. The hopes of Hashim and Muttalib, the two clans counted politically as one, were set upon Muhammad's for the recovery of their waning influence. But beyond all questions of clan, he had come to be considered by the chiefs of Quraysh as one of the most capable men of the generation, which could succeed them, which would have after them the task of maintaining the honor and the power of the tribe throughout Arabia. The praise of Al-Amin was continually upon men's lips, and it was perhaps because of this that Abu Lahab now came to his nephew with a proposal that Ruqayya and Kulthum should be with, betrothed to his son Utbah, and Utbah. Muhammad agreed. Utbah and Utaiba. Muhammad agreed, for his thought well of these two cousins, and the betrothals took place. It was about the time that Umayman became once more a member of the household. It is not recorded whether she returned as a widow or whether her husband had divorced her, but she had no doubt that her place was there, and for the part Muhammad would sometimes address her as mother and would say of her to others, she is all that is left me of the people of my house. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. This was all for today, and we'll be reading inshallah the chapter number 14, the rebuilding of the Kaaba, very soon. And thank you so very much for joining me, and take intensive care of yourself. अस्सलाम वालेकुम वरहमतुल्लाहि वबरकातुहू। इल्तमास दुआ, जज़ाकल्लाह खैरन कसीरा।